It's been a long time since I've said this, but the market is starting to go crazy once again. Now, talking about the Paris capsules first, we've seen a miraculous comeback in this area. Previously, we mentioned that we didn't really expect to see too much from these capsules. That's because the supply on these is absolutely massive, the ROI isn't anything special, and when we're talking about these stickers themselves, they're all relatively cheap. But everything has changed in this area. It's absolutely insane. The capsules are back up to a pretty significant price point on Steam, and what's even more interesting is the price point on Buff is showing the exact same thing. Although it's not massive, it's up to a very similar price point it was sitting at beforehand. SkinSwap is today's sponsor, and they're also sponsoring you with a free bonus for signing up with the first link in the description. They're the premier place for CSGO and Rust skins, with a massive trading site and a top-of-the-line marketplace, offering you the most competitive rates out there and a massive 40% bonus when you're using that link in the description. Combine that with their top-of-the-line selling feature with many payout options, and their trading feature legitimately taking you just about a minute, and there's no reason not to sign up with that first link in the description. Now, without a doubt, a part of this growth has definitely come from the Paris Holos themselves. If we want to look at the Holos, they have once again miraculously started to increase in price, which is just so weird for me personally, because we can see a lot of these Holos are similar to a price point we might have saw a month ago, which is really weird considering we all know they were overpriced at that price point. Nonetheless, we're starting to see a lot of them recover in this area, which is quite surprising for me, but if you're invested into these, I guess it's a very good opportunity for you to go ahead and try and evacuate your position, or just hold on to them if you think the area in this is very prosperous in the future, which I just personally don't see. Now, the thing you're probably most interested in, myself as well, is the case market, because things just got really interesting. That's because the prices that we saw about a month ago are pretty much back. We saw a massive 20-30% decrease, and it's right on back up to that price. But when we look at unboxing numbers right here, we can see a startling trend. Obviously, this is a pretty significant decline from the 1st of November to now. In fact, it's only about a third of the number we saw on November 1st, which raises a lot of concerns when we talk about the longevity of if this growth is going to stay. Now, the good news is we're talking about rare cases here. Rare cases are only going to have a decreasing supply, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're always going to be on an increasing track, as we've seen over the past month. Now, why did we see such a stark increase in price for all of these cases? Especially in the 6 month, it's quite obvious, and I think it comes back to the reason why these cases were decreasing in the first place, and that was just market movement or market momentum. We really didn't see any big update or anything change to these cases as to why they decreased so significantly from the start of about October 15th through right around Black Friday or Thanksgiving. This is extremely important because this is also something we saw a little bit last year, but more importantly, it comes down to the fact that this was just the market movement at the time. There was no real update to change it, which is why it's been so easy for all these cases to recover and get back to the price point they were sitting at roughly beforehand. Now, we've also seen a lot of this growth carry on over into the skins market specifically, mostly talking about play skins. You can see a lot of them are up potentially 15-20% over the past week or so, and this is very interesting because it's significantly less growth than what we're seeing for the cases, but it is growth nonetheless. Now, a lot of these are actually down quite significantly if you still look at the 6-month graph, just because the amount of hype behind this, and partially the reason is cases are going to go down in supply, whereas we can look at the skins market and see the amount of people playing, and it is still not increased. The amount of people playing since about 6 months ago is down almost 30-35%, and therefore it really makes sense as to why a lot of these skins really aren't recovered to that price point, and I don't know if they're going to be able to recover significantly more than what they're at right now if we don't see any changes. Talking about updates, there's 3 things I want to hit on. First up, last Thursday we received a pretty massive update from Valve that did a lot of map changes and such, but I want to focus in on a couple things sticker wise. Obviously, you've probably seen it by now, but the Rio stickers that were scraped, specifically the glitter ones, are pretty much destroyed, and I think this is quite obvious, but this should not have been a reason for you to go ahead and invest into. We've seen so many things created and destroyed by CS2 and just different game mechanics. I think it's a bad investment. Otherwise, we can see that even some of the Antwerp stickers ended up going transparent because of the last update. Once again, I don't think Antwerp is a bad investment, but I think it would be a bad investment to be investing into Antwerp or any of these items because of the changes that were made in one specific update. Second of all, talking about an operation. Now, a lot of people have been resurfacing the operation discussion, talking about how it's December and therefore we have a higher likelihood of receiving an operation. Now, as much as I would like that to be true, I really don't know. The biggest thing I want to point out is if we don't see any major update by December 15th, I think it's reasonable to say we're probably not going to get one in the next couple weeks after. Obviously, we have Christmas and New Year's. Valve is a US-based company. They're not going to be working during those times, and therefore they're not going to be pushing out major updates during that time because that would just make no sense. Therefore, it might be a good time to go ahead and lock down some of your investments and say by December 15th, if nothing's happened, it might be an okay time to go ahead and spend some of that money you had maybe saved for an operation. Now, the one caveat that comes with this is if you believe there's going to be a brand new case released during this time. Now, I would still say it might be an okay idea to go ahead and pick up some tangible investments. That's just because during the first 4 months of the year, we tend to see a decent amount of growth materialize, especially if we haven't seen anything major happen over the last couple months of the year in the previous years. Therefore, it might be an okay time to go ahead and pick up some investments beforehand, just so you're prepared and you're not leaving out with a big stack of cash that you could have had investments and had more cash later down the line. Now, as for events coming up, there's 4 big ones. The first of which is going to be the winter sale. Now, I don't think the winter sale is going to be absolutely massive when it comes to the overall impact it has on CSGO skins, or rather CS2 items at this point, but it is something that is there and it's something you should be aware of. Second of all, then we have the Chinese New Year, which is going to be coming up next February. Now, I mentioned in a previous video, I don't know the actual impact that the Chinese New Year is going to have on the market, at least at this time, but it's something that always impacts it very slightly, and there's a couple specific items like the Tyloo stickers that potentially have a very massive impact happen to them, but I would definitely stay wary of those items as of right now. And then the definite biggest events that are coming up on the horizon are going to be the CS2 majors. First of all, we have the CS2 Copenhagen major, which is going to be the most interesting major at this point because we don't know if the stickers are going to be borderless, and this is going to be a pretty massive impact to see if Paris is going to be very profitable or if it's going to have a very rough time getting off the ground and getting some pretty massive profit in the short term. And then obviously we have the Shanghai major right after that. Now, the somewhat good news of what's going on right now is if we want to look at the 6-month graph for pretty much any item inside of the game, and obviously it's seen pretty much no growth. I mean, the only thing I think has seen some growth is like the Stockholm and the Antwerp actual capsules, but the truth about it is the CS2 or the CSGO market can really only go stagnant for so long. It's a very volatile area, and that's a good thing and a bad thing, but here I think it's going to work to our advantage. The people inside of this area, especially in the investing scene, are really impatient. It either has to be going up or down, and when we see a stagnant period for this long, I feel like there's something that's going to snap. Something is going to change, and I think most likely it's going to be for a positive look. That's because if we talk about the events previously that are coming up, we talk about how the fact that most of the growth that happens inside of CS2 investing or CSGO investing happens in the first half of the year, and a lot of things are starting to look up for the investing scene as a whole. So much so, from my perspective, honestly speaking, if an operation comes out, obviously short term the prices would absolutely drop, but I think it would even be a net positive at this point, which is absolutely wild to say. I think the CS2 investing scene is in a very good position long term, but short term here, it's the perfect time to start accumulating. But what specifically should you start picking up? Well, honestly speaking, everything across the board is probably going to be an okay pickup if you think the player counts are going to increase, but there's some items that are probably going to outperform. First of all, sticker capsules are definitely an area I think you should be looking into, whether that's Stockholm, Antwerp, or even Paris if you think Copenhagen's not going to be a borderless sticker. Also, you've got your cases, which we've obviously mentioned time and time again, but I think collection skins and collection items are probably going to be a pretty good pickup in the current moment as well. These are items that really get swept up in the hype, and especially if we start to see a ton of people returning back to the game, these are ones that are definitely going to have a lot of interest on them, specifically if we don't see an operation, and even if we do, I think they're still going to do quite well. But that's all I got. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day.